I'm on a roll, baby. I'm on a roll. So today, man, episode 4. It's been 4 days. I may have 5 recorded, but we got 4 days straight in. Episode 4 of that time in college. So today, on today's episode, we're gonna discuss that time in college when I first met my academic advisor for my major. So, I don't know if I discussed this in the last video, but I was admitted into college through a academic enrichment program, and that which is common for first gen students. Like I said, yeah, I think I've discussed this. Usually, we got to take like some remedial classes to to gain entrance to like they say to strengthen some of like your core areas or whatever. But I was admitted into LaSalle through the ADP, Academic Enrichment Program, Academic Discovery Program, and because of that, you are set up with counselors and advisors within that group, but also within the school. So for the summer program, like I had to go to the summer remedial classes. For the summer program, I had a counselor, and I had met like an advisor that kind of was telling me about life, like just trying to help me transition. But you don't meet your actual major advisor until you start this fall semester. So my story goes like this. I originally you supposed to meet him within like before school start, but for whatever reason I hadn't had the opportunity to meet him. Like I told you, I had a baby on the way, so a lot of my time in the first couple months of school I was spending like filling out job applications and going home and trying to like do other stuff. So I hadn't had the opportunity to meet the professor who was at the time the advisor chair for chemistry department. So maybe like a month go by for the first semester of school and I don't get a chance to meet him. So I done already started classes. I done already got kind of situated within the school. I was pretty set in, and I finally get a chance to meet him. Now, eventually, the professor Chikowitz, he would later on become like real cool. He was a real nice guy because I was so stubborn. That's another. I'll get to that part. So, like a month in, I finally meet Dr. Chikowitz, and he was probably the only professor I had met in the chemistry department up until this point. And I meet him, and I remember this like it was yesterday, man. I walk into Harroy Hall. I got on my little black book, my little green book bag that I still have from high school. I got on my Dickie set and the hoodie. And I walk in, and I know I look like a nigga, right? And this is like the honesty of it, because every time I walked into a room at LaSalle, it just made me aware of race more and more every time. So I walk into the room, I see him, he looking at me, and his body language is the most expressive. So his body language was just telling me, he was looking at me like, oh, you're like an urban African American, not on some racist shit, but just on some like, okay, you're African American, and you here and you majoring in chemistry. His facial expression told me everything that like he was thinking. He was just like, all right, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. So within our initial encounter, don't say a word. I walk in, hi, I'm Giovanni. I'm one of your students. I'm majoring in chemistry. His look was just like, oh, like unimpressed. Like, oh, okay, I don't think this is going to work out. So we sit down. He opened up my file. Now, mind you, in high school, my senior year, I didn't have math. I didn't have any math. I had like completed all like the required math courses by my 11th grade year, and I had like basically a free period during the end of the day. I used to get out of school like 1:30, 2 o'clock or something like that. Like I ain't had no last period, so I didn't have math during my senior year. So when I took my SAT, I didn't do as good as I probably would have, because I wasn't even taking the SAT course that we had. I used to cut that class all the time because I thought it was bullshit. Because we didn't do nothing in there. Like we wasn't the teacher didn't really want to teach because it was just an extra class for her. They just like made her give it, and so we used to just be in there talking. So I just stopped cutting and going to the gym to play basketball. I had like senioritis, so I'm not gonna act like I was the best student, but I was bright. So back to that, I didn't do that as well as I should have on the math portion of the SAT. I think I got like 480 or something like that, 460, something like that. Like okay score would have been 500. Anything above 500 puts you in like pretty good standing situation. So I got like a 480, like 20, 30 points off, 470 something like that for the math part. But I didn't have math that year, and I didn't even like study that year. I didn't take no prep courses or nothing like that. I literally just walked into the SAT and took it. So that's one of like the cultural things. But I had low SAT scores, so he opened up my file and he like, yeah, man, looking at your scores, seriously, and it's like this is within 5 minutes of me. It's like, yeah. So looking at your scores, I don't think that you should major in chemistry. It's like, I don't think that you're strong enough mathematically to major in chemistry. And this is like my first encounter with somebody from the chemistry department on like a real level. Like I'm all excited. I remember like, being excited about the meeting. Like I'm gonna go in there. I'm like, man, I want to like save the world. I wonder if he'll like tell me what I gotta do. Like if he'll help me. Like I'm excited because I had seen college on TV, so I'm not thinking about the real world interactions that come along with just being socially different, culturally different. I'm not aware of that. I'm thinking that like, all right, well, I'm in college. He gonna respect the fact that I pay my money to go here, and he gonna try to help me. It was the most discouraging thing I ever experienced. Up until that point, it was like a smack in the face. And I'm a stubborn person, so like I said, I walk in and he opened the thing, and he like, yo, yeah, I don't think that you should major in chemistry. You don't seem to have the background. And I was just like, well, no, I don't think that, I'm sitting there defending myself because I get defensive. So I'm like, all right, well, no, I don't think that's an accurate representation. Like I tell him, like, yeah, I didn't have any math this last year. I was taking like AP classes and, I was just trying to get my extracurriculars and stuff up. But he's like, yeah, well, he's like, just in general, like, I don't think that, you would be a good candidate. It takes a lot. Like honestly, this guy didn't like know me from a can of paint. He didn't know anything about my work ethic, how I got into college, like none of this. And his first like message to me was that I wasn't good enough. And so me and my stubbornness and defensiveness, that day, like I walked out, I was like, all right, that's cool. That's nice that you told me that. And I just walked out, like I left. I walked out that day committed. Like that was the day that I decided that I was never going to change my major. That like because fucking Dave Chickowitz, the chemistry professor, and like I said, later on he became cool. By the time I got to my junior year, and I'm still in the major, you see me every day, so we kind of get cool. He's a nice guy. He didn't know me, but that moment in my stubbornness and like once I even after I lost interest in chemistry in the same way I had it initially, and I like I started to get into the cultural issues of the world, and I became like a liberal arts college student. Before all of that, even after all of that, I still wouldn't change my major because honestly, and this was my perception of it, this old white dude told me I could, and that's not like that. That was enough for me to just stick with it. I didn't give a fuck if I was going to crawl across that stage with a chemistry degree. I was going to prove this motherfucker wrong. And that was just my mindset. Like I remember walking out of there and I was sick. You understand? Like I was upset because he just told me from a 5-minute interaction, not even 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes, a 3-minute interaction that he didn't think I could accomplish something or I couldn't do something, or that I wasn't prepared for something. And I just was taken aback, and I'm realizing now that he didn't mean any offense by it. Like if the video ever gets back to Dave Chickowitz, I'm like forever indebted for your honesty of your assessment of that situation. But it wasn't the most encouraging thing, and so I look at that, and I take that experience. That's something that's also singular to first gen students. So when you go into these prestigious universities, so a lot of first gen students, we're more likely to get in for-profit private universities because they can control they control their funding. They can help you a little bit financially, and plus there's like this branding that kind of goes on. So a lot of like first gen students, we want to go to the big name colleges. We don't want to, like for me, I didn't want to go to community. I didn't want to go to 13th grade or Montgomery Community. I wanted to go to a university. I wanted to rock the gear. I wanted to have a big name and all of that shit. And that's one of the biggest lures to first generation students to these colleges is the branding. Black people love brands. But what's more likely to happen at those universities is that we get in, they'll give us the financial support and stuff within our first 2 years, but then by our third or fourth year, we're forgotten about and we don't graduate. Like the graduation rate at private universities, I think the national graduation rate, I think just checked, was like 43% for first gen students. Whereas like for private universities, it's like 33%, 37%, something like that. So the reality of it, I just see my man Deshaun too. The reality of it is that we're more likely to go to these schools, be in there for a year or two, and then leave with no degree. And most students are leaving with an average of, like, I think I just checked the report, $14,000 in debt. Now, for a first-gen minority student, that's enough to throw off the course of their life forever, because you'll be dealing with that. Eventually, you'll fall into default. Won't be able to file your taxes. Won't be able to get tax returns. All of, like, the benefits of having good standing credit. Won't be able to buy a house, and then they won't have a degree. And there are millions of first-gen students that are living off a high school level income with college level debt, and it's sickening. But back to the original story, that's Tom Wynn. So that's the part of it. Was I look at that experience and I'm like, well, would that have happened to me? Would I have been discouraged to major in something if there was a relatability between me and my professor? So I got a friend, Mill. He just hit me up yesterday, right? And I just remember that Mill got a degree in chemistry. Now Mill, I'll also note that Emil is a first generation minority. He's a first generation immigrant student, which they come with a whole nother set of cultures and rules and just different application to education than we do. And if that's just not something you have to notice that they're raised up in a non-American way, so their core system isn't American. So education is important to them. If you brought up American, especially as an African American, education is not going to be important to your cultural surroundings. And so while I acknowledge that he went to HBCU, he also had a different experience. But I bring him up because he was telling me about, when we talked about it, he's like, at Lincoln, he's like, yeah, all my professors helped me. I was struggling, but the professors helped him in a way. They was trying to make sure that he got through because, they were black professors. They had experienced it. I didn't have that. And it was just something that I look back on and I realized how big of an influence it played on me. So would I probably have wanted to change my major after a year or two anyway? Probably so, just because there was so much stuff that culturally I wasn't aware of until I got into college. And that kind of became my new focus. When I got to college, I was like, oh snap, it's the world and all these issues and everything else. It was less, I was less interested in science in the same fun way that I was as a kid, which, drove the desire to want to major in chemistry. But the reality of it is, I probably, like most people, I probably would have just walked away with at least a degree in another environment, in an environment in which I'm encouraged and inspired and related to in a way that it's a struggle. You got to do this, you got to do that. Not making an excuse for me, not saying that the professor not making an excuse as to why I wouldn't be a good candidate to major in chemistry, but me and him working together to make an adjustment to say, all right, well, this is what you would have to do to walk out of here with a chemistry degree. You would have to get some tutoring. You would have to change your study habits in terms of how many hours a day you're available to study your craft and so on and so. And that probably would have been a conversation in which at that time I would have been receptive to. I was I was looking forward to working hard and being pushed and being inspired to figure myself out, to get the best out of myself. But that was one of the most, like I said, discouraging things that happened to me. And because of that, I think my whole college experience was affected, because I would go on and I would get interested in political science, I would get interested in sociology, and I would get interested in philosophy and just learning about the world. And I would be tempted to change my major, but honestly, the conversation that kept coming back in my mind, and me being the stubborn, defensive person that I am, especially from with the culturally, racially, somebody of a different race telling me what I can or can't do, nigga, I'm not changing my major at all. Fuck him. And that's just that's where I was at. And so, just to sit here and to look back at that experience, that's something that another first gen is probably going through right now. There's a first gen that would love to go to school and major in STEM, and no, he or she is not making excuses. They're not they don't. It's not that we are equally prepared to encounter the more rigorous majors, because we don't have our schools don't even have the resources to give the lessons that they need to give to teach the kids the proper biology, chemistry, mathematics. Like I had one teacher in my entire scholastic career that actually did science. Like that was an actual scientist. Fucking Dr. What was it? Dr. Kennedy in Parkway. Like we dissected a frog. That was the first time I ever did experiments. So throughout like my whole 13 years from kindergarten to 12th grade, the only real experiments in which I did in terms of real science, like science that would really be worth it, that I couldn't just do at home, was in 10th grade, and that was 1 year. So yeah, I wasn't prepared, but that don't mean that's an excuse. The adjustment would be to get me the proper tutoring, set me up with like time management and building a schedule, how to work it out. And that's not what the concern was. He saw me, he saw my lack, and he made an assessment. And that's something that, like I say, first gens are going through all over the country right now. Like he would love to major in biology, and then we look at the jobs, the higher paying jobs, the specialized jobs in the STEM fields. But we're more likely to go to these prestigious white universities, get discouraged from majoring in the STEM, and then be fast tracked to these standard majors that they feel that we should just get a degree, but we don't have no purpose in our education. So for us, we going to college borrowing, $10,000 to $15,000 for a degree that we don't even enjoy or even care about enough to pursue the specialization that it requires to get to that higher level of pay. So like if you look at college is about specializing. So when if we don't as African Americans don't understand the structure of college, people that go to college and plan to make money from it plan to be in that field all the way through. So like you pick something that you like to learn about, and then you just learn about it for the rest of your life. Like there's people that, like doctors, they like medicine, they learn about it for the rest of their life. They gotta take CE credits. Psychologists, chemists, everything is about the more you specialize. So even if you was to major in pharmacy, the more specialized that you get is probably the more in demand you can get for everything. But if you major in communications just because somebody told you to major in communications and you don't like it, so you don't have a special skill that you're trying to get to, then you're not going to get nothing. You're going to graduate with your degree, you in debt, and now of course you're going to get a job. And people that, now this is the benefit of it, the people that do get a degree, they make $1 million more over a lifetime. But you got to realize that can't be the current business model of us just sending kids to school to get a degree, whereas in one place that communication degree costs $60,000. On the other hand, the other one costs $20,000. We're getting a bad return on investment in terms of, like, this guy cannot possibly, unless he specializes, unless he goes all the way into his field and stay within that. Like he wants to be a sports reporter, and he goes through that path to become like a recognized sports reporter. He pick a lane and he stick to it. But the guy that paid $60,000 for that communication degree and the guy that paid $20,000, they have like immensely different hurdles to overcome to even get back to breaking even first, and then actually getting a return on investment for themselves and from for the schools. Like the schools, they want us to be able to give back and contribute and be productive citizens of society. But you can't do that if you can't close that gap between what you pay for your education and what the world is willing to value it at. And I think that's one of the issues. So, man, that I think that's enough for today. I went a little long. So to recap, man, today was about that time in college when I met my academic advisor for the first time, and I got discouraged. Like he told me, the old white dude told me that I wasn't gonna be able to major in my major, and he might have been right. I still don't have my chemistry degree. I'm 30 years old now. I got my transcript upstairs. I got over like 100-something credits, over 100-something credit hours. I should have a degree, and whether I take full responsibility for the fact that I didn't put my best foot forward, but I think with a little bit more support and just understanding all of the obstacles that was in front of me, and having a plan to deal with those obstacles instead of just not thinking those obstacles were there, I think I would have been able to get out. But that was an experience. And so for the first gens that are going through it, man, hold your head. Like, don't allow yourself to be discouraged in the same way I was. Use that discouragement as encouragement to do the things that you have to do. So I resolved to myself at that time that I was going to do it by myself. That I was going to prove that I was smarter. That I was capable. And it became like this individual defense of myself against a university of school in which I just wasn't going to win. You get what I'm saying? So to take that same experience, and if I would have not made an excuse to myself, but have made the proper adjustment, I would have been able to get my degree. But that's it, man. I'm going to holler at y'all.